Hello and welcome to the Poole Panto Podcast. We take a cheeky peek behind the curtain of our dream family pantomime Sleeping Beauty, which is running at Lighthouse until Sunday the 5th of January. I'm Nick Churchill and I'm joined by none other than our very own Chris Jarvis.
Hello.
Who wrote and directs the show and of course is playing the fabulous Dame Nanny Nutkins.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. It's quite some show. How are the energy levels holding up?
It's very, very busy. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's logistically it's quite tricky as you can imagine. There's more going on in the wings and behind the scenes than there is on the stage, you know, getting ready and also recovering from things that's going on. So this year we have a lot more mess. You know, there are two big what we call slosh scenes where there's mess on the stage. One is particularly messy and it's great fun, and we've just done a show with an audience mainly full of children, and it was electric.
Right.
And it was my favourite moment.
Wow.
And other shows, other things might, you know, tick a few more boxes, but you know, the trick is to come up with a show that works for an audience full of children or an audience full of adults. So hopefully that's what we achieve every year and work very hard on creating.
Well, I think you've come up with a cracker this year. I mean, there's always must be a pressure to come up with something new, and the stories are very well known and very traditional. But you know, where do the ideas come from?
Well, I think the ambition is to always trump the previous years, but also to come up with something that's a bit more challenging. Thanks to Pixar and CBeebies actually, because on the CBeebies pantomime, we are always challenging our writers to come up with more inventive plots and go off on tangents and really challenge the audience. And this is being done by Pixar all the time. Every time Disney produce these wonderful stories, you know, they're more and more complex, and it's incredible what children can absorb. And actually, if you've got a really good story and it's engaging, and as long as that story and the narrative is clear, they'll go with it. And that's what's been particularly electric. Jokes are easy, really, compared to actually keeping everyone locked into a good story. And hats off to the actors and all the storytellers, which also includes lighting, sound.
Absolutely.
That's absolutely the costumes, the set, everything is part of that jigsaw that helps to sell a story to a 3-year-old and a 103-year-old.
It all has to make sense.
Yes.
In its own terms somehow, doesn't it? So
Yeah.
That must be the challenge, because you're not just telling the Sleeping Beauty story that we know from Disney films or from previous pantomimes. This is quite specific what you're doing here.
Yes.
It's a very Poole story, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's great fun always anchoring the story in Poole or Dorset, and you know, including as many local things as possible. This year I'm very proud of Josh because I sent him a big curveball with a song which is just made up of I mean, this is a very traditional panto routine where you sing a song which is basically a list of things to the can-can.
Yes.
And this year it's all place names in our local area, and he does it superbly. Just using video, a very fine man called Sam has cut together a video of local events, which was really, really good. And so, using the technology and the resources that we've got, you know, to tell the story.
I think there's the other thing that's impressed me with Sleeping Beauty is the age in which we live nowadays, that we're got to be so much more careful about the presumptions that we make. And the programme has a consent signed by the princess to a kiss.
Yes.
Now, obviously, we live in a time where that is necessary, but it's the level of thought that's gone into this. I wonder to what extent we're almost you're making a blueprint for how these pantos could be performed in the future in some way.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right, because I think that 5 years ago, pantomime suddenly got even more interesting for me anyway, because so many things happened. Black Lives Matter, Me Too, COVID, Brexit, all these things had a massive impact on everything, you know, in our world. But for Panto, it really gave it the boot up the backside that it had needed for a long time to evolve. And I think pantomime's come on leaps and bounds. People are taking all sorts of risks, And thanks to places like Lighthouse, Poole, because we do have a lot of freedom to tell original stories, whereas more commercial places are like, oh no, don't change it, it works. They're a little bit more risk averse, and so we can take bolder steps and produce something highly original. But yeah, I think you're right. Things have changed, and we are embracing as much as we can. There's always room for improvement. Things are always changing. Tastes change. But I think for me, just going back to what I said a minute ago, the most exciting thing is the fact that people seem to be able to handle more complex storylines and want it. So, for example, the romance, years ago, that was the bit when kids used to open up the crisp packets and go off to the loo. Come back! But you had to do it because you had to tell the story. Now, the romance is really important. They want it, they love it. And so to be able to tell that bit of the story as well is really, really good.
They are invested in it, aren't they, in a way that, certainly the boys as well, you wouldn't necessarily expect them to be. So
yeah, they're much kinder than we were.
That's what I think so.
When I was at the pantomime, we
Get that bit out of the way. It's the knockabout stuff.
Yeah.
And yet, for all the modernity and the risks that you take, you still manage to work in a scene that, I don't know, how's the painting and decorating scene? Is that 150 years old? I mean,
yes, absolutely. And it's one of those routines that you meddle with at your peril, really, because thanks to all the people who have gone before, yes, Laurel and Hardy, Norman Wisdom, Bernard Cribbins, whose music we use, his favourite song of his, well, actually he had lots of hits, but, Right Said Fred was one of them, wasn't it? And we used that as the backing for a routine that Josh Haberfield and Todd Carty deliver with aplomb. And yeah, it's full on mess, big buckets of slosh as they try and wallpaper and spectacularly fail and get themselves completely covered.
Amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And it still works as in an audience with sort of surrounded by 4, 5, 9, 10, 13-year-olds and grandparents too. So they're all laughing.
Yeah. Oh, to hear children laugh, when that laughter is so big and so genuine, is just gorgeous. Yeah. Yeah.
You've also assembled quite a cast here this year, haven't you? They seem very tight with each other. So.
Yeah, and I always say at the beginning of rehearsals, because very rarely does everybody know each other, and I always say, try and be friendly. I'm not asking you to be friends, I just want you to be friendly with each other. But, these guys have become good friends very quickly, and I think that warmth and that kindness goes out. It's like on telly. I can always tell when people aren't getting on. I don't know about you.
You can see something in the eyes.
Yeah. So we're lucky again because we've been so fortunate, and I've been very fortunate through my panto career of working with really wonderful people, generous people, so generous to me when I first started, and I hope I am to everyone I'm working with now. But because that's where you learn, watching the repetition. There are very few places and opportunities like this throughout the year anymore, where summer season, I guess, where it happens, but this is where you watch and learn and also learn through doing.
Looking at your numbers, I think next year is your 30th successive year in panto.
Yeah, but I did it as a kid as well.
Well,
so
there you are.
I'm very sad.
No, not at all. I was going to say, where do you personally still learning?
Oh
still
my
discovering
gosh!
Things?
So, I'm learning more now than I did when I started, really, because things have changed so much, and we all learn from each other. So the young ensemble, who are amazing this year, I have to say, they are always amazing here, but because they're so invested and there's so much going on in this area, which means that we have the fruits of all those wonderful schools in the area. Leaf, Stepping Out, Stage Door. There are so many, Poole, there's so many brilliant places where people can study and learn and practice their art. And so it's such a high standard, but they bring so much to the table, great ideas and energy. And because it's not always like that. Years ago, it wasn't.
They could really move as well, can't they?
Oh my word! And what they bring, it's not just dancing. There's all sorts in the show. They're incredible.
So you've got an interesting mix of experienced television actors, hardworking touring one woman actors.
Yeah.
You've got relative newcomers, Panto first timers,
Yes.
and actually they all seem to be supporting. They seem to have gelled very well. So,
Yes, and they all bring something very different, but they also bring fresh ideas and a whole new approach. And we need to embrace that rather than say, oh no, that's not how we do it. We do it this way. You know, just go along with it. You know, and because the words on the page can be delivered, as you know, in any way, shape, or form.
at all,
And
yes.
so yes, and
Yeah.
it's great to hear it.
Yeah. And looking ahead, you'll be back next year with
Dick Whittington.
Yeah.
And which is another great story. What's good is that there was a time when there were about 5 books: Cinderella, Snow White, Jack and the Beanstalk, Aladdin, Sleeping Beauty, and they were just trotted out on a loop. I mean, there are some theatres that do Cinderella every
Yes.
other year.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are now lucky that so many venues are taking risks. Once again, thanks to Pixar and CBeebies. Last year we did Robin Hood
Good, yeah.
and Dick Whittington the year before that. And those books are now, there are loads of Robin Hoods and Dick Whittingtons out at the moment. And so thanks to, all these different, and also because people want to be challenged more. And so these are good stories. Because I mean, Martin Dodd up the road in Bournemouth, I know that one of his favourite books is Dick Whittington, but I remember him saying, it doesn't sell, Chris. And, I think now it does.
Yeah.
I think it will do, because people, want a change. They like variety, and you certainly get that with Dick.
Like an early bit of research, Alice Fitzwarren is a daughter of Dorset, apparently. So, there we are.
I will always be. You are brilliant. With your local history.
You're going to join
And
one of
I
those.
really wanted to get all that history that you found out about Brownsea Island, but maybe
can't
for the
shoehorn-
sequel. I know it's like, where do we shoehorn that all in?
can't.
In the
You
programme.
can't, but it's a genuine Dorset
Thank you.
heroine.
Wow. Yes.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank
Absolute
you.
pleasure.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Thank you.